Hello, this is Tip Top Gaming here today with another MTG Arena video. Now, in the last video, I talked about the MTG Arena August state of the beta. Now, technically, this video is actually coming out in September, but that's because this state of the beta was a very late one. So, yeah, I actually, a little bit after they posted the state of the beta, they did this live stream, this hour-long live stream, and I thought I would break down everything that they announced during this live stream. So, some things may be repeated, although I tried to cut out a lot of the stuff that would be repeated, and I just took simple notes. So, again, if you want the full coverage, although this should be literally everything important, but if you want things reiterated or maybe said in a slightly different way than what I said and what the state of the beta said, you might want to check that out. So, the first thing they talked about really was Historic, and with Historic, they talked about, hey, there's 2 times wildcard, it takes 2 times wildcards to craft 1, and they said they did this for balancing purposes, for the long-term health of the game, and that when you log on, it's fun. And in my opinion, this makes absolutely no sense. If I log in and I want to have fun, I want to play with those old cards. I don't want to have to grind to then play with cards that have half the usefulness. I think a lot of people in the community are saying they purposely knew this was going to be a bad choice and they want to be praised for fixing it afterwards. So I think we can actually stop something like this in the future for not praising them for doing the right thing, but criticizing them for doing the wrong thing. I mean, you can praise them for doing the right thing the first time in the future, but I think praising them for fixing something could lead to more things like this in the future. Either way, what they said is that, part of the reason you shouldn't flip out as much is because, that's not the only way to get the cards. It's not like you have to just use wild cards. It's not like you have to use 40 wild cards a month to get all the new cards. And here's what they said, and they may have been misspeaking, but they said there'll be a historic event every month. You'll pay the entry fee, so there will be an entry fee, and I hope you can do this in coins, because if you can't do this in coins, then you might as well only be able to get the cards through wild cards. But you pay the entry fee, and you get a full play set of all cards, so a full play set, meaning 4 of them, of varying rarities between common and mythic, a full play set of all of them released with the event. So 20 cards are added to the game, which they said is happening in November. You pay the entry fee, you get 80 cards. And I find that very hard to believe. So I wonder if when they said all of the cards, they meant all the cards associated with the theme of the event. I think that could be a lot more likely. But if they really mean all cards, I think that'll be a lot better. Unless it's something like 1,000 gem entry fee. Or, so getting into this event will get you like 80 cards. And also, let me stop there. It also may be that the first event might give you 80 cards, but in the future they add 5 cards, and so it could be something like that. But I just think it's crazy because you'll also get rewards in the event, it sounds like. So this just seems like a very win-win situation for anyone playing Historic. However, it also kind of shuts down modern or new players from playing it. Alrighty, another thing to note, it has its own banned and restricted list. And yes, and restricted list. However, they don't have to wait for BNR announcements, banned and restricted announcements. They said they are going to use analytics from the game, and they want this to be different than every other format. They want to feel different than standard. They don't want it to be old standard. They want it to be its own things. And they said they want to get on things quickly. Something becomes a problem, ban it. Something becomes a problem, add a card that fixes that problem quickly so that the format always feels fun. They also said they might ban things, they might restrict things, and they might suspend cards is what they said. They said, hey, what if we were to temporarily ban this card and see how it affected the meta, and then maybe permanently ban it from there. So they said they could do any of these things, and since it's not a paper format, they basically have full jurisdiction over it. They want to make it quick, they want to make it so they can make these changes at any time. So I think that's really amazing, and there's something I wrote later in my notes, which I'm going to bring up now, or I guess the next thing on my notes is, react to data quickly, add cards, remove cards, etc. They want it to be fun, so they change it to be so. And something that they said later, and I really like it, and I kind of paraphrase this, is they are talking to people in the community. They want to talk to streamers about what's not fun. If it's not balanced, fix it. If it's not fun, change it. This is a really good thing. A lot of time with the standard meta, they're like, if as long as it's balanced, we're going to keep it. Not as long as it's fun. And so they said they want this to be we want this to be fun, not fun and balanced, not just one of those. All right, so then they gave some examples of what the cards could be. They said these may not be the exact cards, but these were examples of cards that would be in these sets. And when they say throughout Magic history, they mean it. Now, first one, they said Brainstorm. This is a very powerful common. It's a 1-cost blue spell, and it's very powerful. We have Well-Wisher, Firebolt, Imperial Armor, Wormcoil Engine, Dark Confidant, and maybe Creature Lands, because that was brought up later as something they were actively talking about. So this one might be a little different than the other ones, but they talked about the value of being able to just take a specific set of cards or specific card without having to add 200 more with it from that set. And that's why they think the individual card route is going to work out better than the set route. However, later on in the podcast or the live stream, they did say they are looking at a way to just implement all of Hour of Devastation and Amonkhet. So, like, I see this being... They said they're still talking about adding it. They said they are going through all of Magic's history. Nothing is on the table, but nothing is also off the table. They want to add cards to shake up the meta constantly, which I think is both good and bad. It's going to drain your wild cards, which is what they want, especially at a 2x ratio. But also it means that it's always fresh and fun. They talked about they don't want it to be old standard. They want it to feel different, and so that's why the cards they add will affect it. That's what they said. What they add will affect the meta, not just a set where only a certain amount of cards affects the meta. They want to when asked about, would you ever create new cards for Arena, they said they want to reprint things first because there's so much in the past that they can do, and then maybe create new cards. And if you guys want to see a video all about what I would call Arena Masters or Arena Horizons or Historic Horizons, something like that, please let me know in the comments down below. But they said, they have reprinted or they have created custom cards just for Arena. Like, there's this one boost spell, which is absolutely terrible. It's a 1-cost instant. It says +2/+2 to something that's attacking or blocking. There's one that says only use this when someone's attacking you. Create 3 spirits or something for 5. They're not very good, but they are exclusive to Arena. I'll pop up a couple of those exclusives on the screen right now. All right, they said they have more announced for... so they originally, in the state of the beta, they said, hey, we have basically rotated standard a month early in a special event. And they said, from what they said, and again, a lot of this wasn't clear, and they kept, kind of going back on things, but what it sounded like is that there's going to be more events that haven't been announced for rotation. So it might sound... It sounds like to me like they're going to be like, okay, so this is... You can always play the pre-rotated, but you can also play pre-rotated, or... I guess post-rotation, singleton, post-rotated pauper. That's kind of what it sounds like, but, they were, again, super weird about this. They said that only they've only did the 45 pack count, because once a set rotates out, you're only going to be able to buy packs of it by 45 at a time with gems. And they said it'll be the same price and all that, and you'll still get the mythic or the buy a box promo with it. And they said they do that because that's the #1 most bought thing when people are trying to expand their collection. I think that they could still work in a way to do it with coins, especially saying that the cards are less useful after they're rotated out. But I guess this is one of the lesser things I've complained about. They stated, and I'm sorry, I'm jumping around. They jumped around a lot in the podcast thing. They did say they are officially working on a friends list.
I'm just gonna paraphrase this one as friends list ?
So
have you been asked that question before?
Yeah, and definitely.
This is the first time hearing it.
We're officially in the working on it part of it.
Okay.
We don't want to announce more than that, and my marketing guy might already punch me for saying that, but we want to put those types of things in and even more coming in. I would love to tell you all the things, but he will probably punch me. But yeah.
Historic analytics are super important. It's built to change. There's no cards really off limit, but they're still talking about it, so there might end up being cards off limit. They want it to be different from every format. So after that, they kind of switched up to the rotation and renewal section of the State of the Beta and talking more about that. So then they talked about the 10 IRCs, or the individual card ICRs, that are rares or higher, which they didn't seem to keep going on about, but in the state of the beta, it did say that they are higher. They said that they will be duplicate protected. Kind of. They said it's the same way as they compared it to something, and I was like, I don't know if that's actually duplicate protected. And so they said, yes, it's duplicate protected, but they gave an example, which I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's not duplicate protected. So again, they're not very clear with this, which is kind of infuriating. So for those of you who don't know, on the MTG Arena forums, at one point there was a giant post, and they basically took feature requests and said, hey, this is something that's working, like it's currently in the game. It is something we are thinking about, like we're currently figuring out how that would work in the game, then developing on it. And then there's dreaming, which are kind of like the things we want to get to but aren't currently at the forefront. For instance, Brawl was a dreaming, but it was announced that by the end of 2019, Brawl will be in the game. So MTG Arena on mobile was dreaming up until recently, and now they are working. It's now in the working category, so they are now actively working on MTG Arena for mobile. They are talking about 8-player, like, real pod drafts, but they said the issue that they could do it, but they said right now the way it would work, it wouldn't be any better, it wouldn't be a better experience than the draft bots, because the big thing about the pods is that it's a social experience, and so they have to figure out a way to balance it to make it different from the drafting bots. But they said it's not a matter of it's not a matter of if they're going to do it, it's a matter of when they're going to do it. They said they are changing Throne of Eldraine Mastery Pass, which makes sense as it's a new thing with Core Set 2020, and they said they're basically, it's going to not always be changing, but they're learning lots of new things, so, yeah. They said, one of the things they said is that one of the complaints I got was, oh, I got to the end too quickly, now all this XP is kind of just wasted rewards that I could have been getting something else for, and they said they have a plan for that. Nothing more, just they have a plan. They said, next time they want to make the Mastery Pass achievable through just daily play. Like, you don't have to have codes, you don't have to do events. And then they said they want to work on more ways to get XP, which kind of contradicts that first thing. One major thing that wasn't announced in the state of the beta that everyone thought they would and was clarified later on Twitter as well is that everyone is getting the new player decks on September 26th. It will not count towards vault progress, and they said they wanted this because they're giving you the cards so that way you can just, get a bunch of vault progress, which I think could have been nice because, wild cards, we're going to need a lot of those, but just so that way players, it is possible you wouldn't have a single standard card. If you, I guess not, because you would have had some standard cards from the original new player decks. So I guess it's not possible that you don't have any standard cards, but you might not be able to really build a deck. So they want to make sure that everyone has their collections brought up to date, and so that players who joined after last month's update, or the Core Set 2020 update, they weren't disadvantaged. Or they don't have an advantage over everyone else in terms of the cards they have for standard. They also said that cosmetics that left the stores in bundles, they said specifically in bundles, will come back, and they said that they talked a lot about cosmetics. They talked about how if something was super popular, they're going to bring it back more likely, and if something's not being added, basically a giant theme throughout this whole thing was, if you want something, communicate. And they said, if you want a cosmetic and it hasn't been back, communicate that to us, let us know. And I really think that's a good direction for the game. And they said actually some items that were part of a bundle previously are coming back individually with the Throne of Eldraine update. And yeah, my last point is, give feedback. So yeah, that's all they talked about. This ended up being a much longer video than I was expecting, at about 14 minutes. But I hope, at least before jump cuts, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe. If you want to see more content like this, check out, there's going to be a lot more content about this coming out soon. Either way, see you guys in the next video.